Hello, everybody. I'm Kenna Pryor, and I serve as the Director and Curator for the Visual Arts Ministry at Baruch HaShem. As part of our program, we host the fifth Wednesday art demo. Now, that's a time that we invite a creative person and we ask them to share a little bit of what's happening behind the scenes so that we can understand their process, how they come up with ideas, their timelines, and their tools. So at this time, we're transitioning onto video, and our first guest on video is Gretchen Samsel. Now, Gretchen can bring a lot to us, but the thing we're most interested in here today is that Gretchen is in charge of creating and managing many of our visuals. And so those could be used for educational purposes, they could be used for announcements or special events. And so, with that, Gretchen has a lot more of a logistical approach to how she works, and she can bring us a lot of tools that we might not have considered beforehand. So, sit back, enjoy, and don't forget to take notes.
Hi, I'm Gretchen Samsel. I am part of the communications team at Baruch HaShem, Messianic Synagogue, and we are presenting for you an art demo called Defeating the White Screen, or also known as Visual Marketing, the Basics. So I just want to let you know a little bit about myself. I have never been formally trained in creating any visual arts. It is something I've just dug around and played with and experimented. And so mostly I've used free apps and free programs that I found on the internet to help me create all of these. In time, I may have purchased something that I knew worked, so I had a little bit more storage or folders, things like that. But in general, my input money wise into this venture has been very little. So I just want to take some time to share with you today how you can get started, how you can defeat the white screen. So let's get started. How about that? The first thing I want to talk to you about is the feeling. What feeling are you trying to get across with the image that you're creating? Do you want people to be intrigued? Do they want to feel peaceful? What is it that you're trying to capture in those very first few seconds that you have? That attention, that first punch that you get. So I spend a lot of time here before I ever get to the screen. I think about that. I think about it. I talk to the person I'm creating it for. I try to understand where they're coming from. Are they a dirt and water make mud kind of person that likes to keep it very simple? Or do they like something that makes people think? So that I spend a lot of time with that. So I want to show you some of the images that we've done that I think convey a lot of great feeling. So this first one that you'll see is for our immersion service, or what a lot of people refer to as baptism. And water can be a little bit tricky in that it can look very hard, or it has a lot of movement, or if you take a picture from under the water, you have that feeling of drowning. And I loved this one because the feeling was that you were immersed in the water, but you see the edge of the water so that you know that you're there, but you're not underneath it. You're enveloped in it. So I loved how simple this was with the color and the feel. The next one I did was for our broadcast of the Revive Israel, the Fast of Esther. So when you're doing fast, you don't put up pictures of hot dogs or chips because, of course, we're without. You don't want to use water because a lot of people do hard fast. So I searched Revive Israel's website, and they kept using this image of these lines over and over again. And I loved the feeling of them, that there was movement, but there was an end, and there was a harshness on the top. And so it just gave you that, it pulled you in, but it wasn't distracting. It made you curious about this fast of Esther. This is our new cover art for our YouTube channel. When I was approached to do this, I sat and thought about YouTube and YouTube's videos. It's motion, it's moving. So to find a still photography image or any still image at all and try to convey that just wasn't working. I tried to do a play off of just the play button, the icon. That didn't work. It still was stagnant. And so I started searching for motion in pictures, and I found this, and I love it because I don't know whether I'm going into Baruch HaShem or whether Baruch HaShem is coming out at me, but at least there is emotion. So this is our new cover art. This image we chose for a tutorial on challah baking from home. And so I loved the earth tones of it, the wood of the cutting board. I love that challah wasn't this perfect challah made in a commercial kitchen. It's at home, it's homey, and somebody's torn off that end piece. It makes you just want to bite it. So that's why we chose this one. This, in going the opposite direction, is to celebrate our leaven-free week. And so that's when you get rid of all the bread and you eat matzah. So this calls attention to that there's a change. The matzah is still light and inviting, but you know that there is a change that has to be made. And that is signified by the gray to the black, that there is a definite change coming. The next thing I want to talk to you about is color. And color can be your best friend or your worst enemy all in the same breath. Like a lot of design pieces that you'll put together, the elements that you put together. Color has psychology, color has emotion, color has feeling. Now, what I feel about a color may not be what you feel about a color, but in general, it's pretty close. You know, if my favorite baby blanket that I had until I was 8 years old was neon green, guess what? I probably love neon green. Most people may not love neon green. So you're not going totally by what your preferences are, because some of our preferences are different than most people. You're going with the general thought here. So this is an image we did just to let people know that there is a change in the events. We chose a red, but salmon, more to the salmon color, so it wasn't quite as shocking when people saw it, but yet it caught their attention. This image I loved when I found it. We have this wonderful ministry that we refer to as MME, Ministerio Messianico in Espanol. And to find an image that encompasses all of the people that have Hispanic backgrounds is a little difficult. You don't want to pick one thing because there's a variety. But what I was led to is that in most of those cultures, color is a unifying element that runs through most of them. So I found this piece of art, and I love that it's light to dark and all the colors mix. And even where your yellowy orange mixes with the green, they're not fighting. They play off one another. So that's why this was chosen. And it just gives that warm feeling. It gives a feeling of, especially in the way that it's done, that there is an age to it, that there's a history. Color doesn't necessarily have to be something bright. I love using black and white. We did this program called Listen My Children for Prom last year. And so I set off to find a picture of this perfect child, which you know how difficult that can be. And when I found this image, it was in color. And I found myself drawn to the color of her cheeks and to the color of her lips and to the color of her eyes instead of to her expression. So I changed it to black and white, and suddenly I can't get away from her eyes and the openness of her mouth and her complete attention that she's giving to whomever is speaking to her. So because that image of her expression is so important, I wanted to choose a font color that did not draw attention away from it. I didn't want to use anything super bright that instead of looking at her, you looked at the font. I also didn't want it to get lost. So that's why we chose this purple, because it just plays off the black and white enough that you see it, but it is not the attention grabber. If you will go on the internet, you will find lots of different explanations of color and what colors mean in general for most of the population. This is a very simple one I found. My suggestion to you is you search for a graphic that the words that they use to describe the colors speak to you. Some people may not associate with confidence, success. They may associate with power, strength, those kind of words. So, all different ones out there with all different types of words being used, but all generally the same meaning. One of my favorites is the psychology of color. It breaks down the colors in more than just the base colors. And I love it because I can go here and find that one color or in that hue that I am trying to get across. So I love this one. I go back to this one quite often. So sometimes when you're dealing with color, you realize that there are things that need multicolors because of the matter that you're dealing with and the way people are feeling at the moment. This is something we did when the COVID-19 began, and we were asking people that if you were coughing, please stay home and please wash your hands, and all the things that we started with before we got to self quarantining. So what I realized is people are all over the place at this time. This color goes from a gray in one color to an orange in the other, and everywhere in between. So this brought multiple people's attention in and spoke to multiple people emotionally just to try to get their attention, to pay attention, and to say, okay, we understand. So let's talk about the issue. This is an example of bad use of color, and yes, this one's mine. You can tell by the watermark of Shutterstock on the background texture that we did not use it. Um, I love the background. It is an amazing piece that was done, but this was the wrong application for it. I found myself, and when I did it, and even today as I pulled it back up to use for this, my eyes go back and forth between the letters of BHS and the Star of David. And my mind is constantly fighting of what I'm supposed to be looking at. Not only that, but my eye is drawn to only to the left side of the image. I completely lose the S on the far side of the image. So you don't want your colors to cause that issue. It's kind of funny that we were going to use this as a welcome screen. And my thought was, I wouldn't feel welcome here at all if this were up. I would, I would be so mesmerized I might not make it in past the front door. So this, we chose not to use it. I hope someday to use this background because I love it. But this is a great example of how your color can absolutely ruin the image that you're trying to get across. The next thing I want to talk to you is about your font choice. Fonts, like colors, can be the hero or they can be the villain. And so I want you to understand that color generally impacts us, or at least me, impacts me first. And I have a reaction to the color or the combinations of color and what the picture is before I get to the font. But sometimes what we write in font is all of what our message is, and it speaks very highly. So, and sometimes it screams, and I will show you one of those. Um, and if that is what you're trying to do, you're trying to have a big impact with your words, that's okay, but you have to be careful how you use it. So let's go through some of the ones I've done. This we did as a season of repentance, and we wanted people to feel welcome. So I found this handwriting as though somebody had written me a note and just said, "Come as you are." It was very casual, it was very welcoming. If I had put this in big, bold statements, I think it would have screamed at me, and I would have not have felt as comfortable to embrace this image. And then when you talk about repentance, which is not always an easy topic, I did not want that to be too formal. I wanted it to have some flow, to have some feeling, so that when people read that, they weren't put off by the thought of, oh, great, time to clean out my personal closet. So I used a round font, a very modern font, to play off of the handwriting. This next one is Know Before You Whom You Stand, which was the program that we ran directly after Come As You Are. And this takes on a note of formality. No more are you just supposed to be how you are. Now you need to realize that it's time to clean yourself up. You've gotten a formal invitation and you need to know before whom you stand. For us, it was the thought of standing before God. So we chose a much more formal font for this to bring your attention. This is one we did for Pesach last year. One of our artists, Casey Parrott, did this piece of art for us. And I did not want to compete at all with the image that he did. So I wanted to find something that looked as though it was hand done. And I also wanted to play off the lines that were in the waves. So hence the linear of the A. And yet I chose a color that was there and it didn't fall off the page. It didn't get washed away in the water. It was there, but it worked with the image and didn't make you look at it instead of the beautiful piece of art. In Pesach, we do a children's Seder. So in that same year, I was trying to keep the all-in theme, but do it for the kids. And so I chose to do the water, the same kind of water where we're encouraged to get out of the boat and go towards our Savior. This is speaking to children about jumping off a diving board. We're going to go all in, which for them can be kind of terrifying. And I found this font that I just loved because it looked like it had been done with a paintbrush in a hurry and using the exclamation point for the I. It just spoke to the kids. Come on, guys, we're going to go all in. And it's a completely different feeling from the one we used in the service, but it had the same meaning, even though it had a completely different feel. This is one we did for the Judaica shop. It has a feeling of time to it, that someone has learned how to do this beautiful handwriting, that they've written you this personal invitation, and yet it's not so stoic that it's confined. Instead, this one goes outside the wreath. So it gives that feeling of, we're not being boxed in, we have personality, and yet we have traditions. So I like how it plays off the wreath. This is for our dance ministry. When you're given a word dance, it's hard to make it exciting. So, because we see it so often. So I wanted to make it the star, but I wanted to put it in the background, that you almost noticed it after you noticed the image of the woman dancing. So it's fun when you can take your font, make it big, make it your background, but it doesn't scream at you. It's there, it adds. I love that the fonts were overlapping so that you got some depth. This is one where your font actually becomes your image. We use this for a new program for pre-marriage counseling, and I saw this M and it just gave me the idea to put the dots on top of it, and now you have two people in an embrace. So sometimes that's what your font is. Your font becomes your image. So that's a fun way to go about it. Recharge is another one where we had this font that reminded me of your power symbol on so many things. And originally I had it in white. And then I had the idea, we change it to green, that means we have powered up. So even that simple change of color of your font can change the whole meaning of your image. This is a study that was done. A yeshiva is a study. And so I didn't want to take anything away from what it was. So I just kept a typewriter script and I used the periods to separate each one of our pieces of information in it. This is the one I want to talk to you a little bit about. This is a very simple graphic. And it's as though you have two things that are calling your attention. There's this trap that's very menacing, and yet you have very menacing font. In using this font, this was not an easy one for me. because I was breaking a bunch of design rules. There's bad overlapping and there's tangents and it's not very clear. So, but I wanted that. I wanted you to feel a sense of this is wrong. And in making it wrong, I feel that it came out correctly, if that makes any sense. This font I used only, I made it outline only, I added a shadow to it. I wanted to feel as though it wasn't attached completely to the image, but almost it was out there floating. Um, so I go back and forth on this one of looking at the font and looking at the trap, and I know something is wrong, and that's what I wanted to convey to people. There is a trap out there. It's the mother of all heresies. Something is wrong, and we need to pay attention. So I am going to suggest to you that you go visit 99designs.com. They have a great article there that's called The 5 Types of Fonts and How to Use Them. It even tells you how you can combine your fonts. So a lot more detail than I'm giving you. It explains the different type of fonts. I will go out, I will find articles that I will keep and I'll reference back to, and I really enjoyed this one. The next thing I want to talk to you about is lines. Lines are everywhere in all images, whether we recognize it or not, but we need to pay attention to it because it plays a role that we can't even fully comprehend unless we're paying attention to it. So let's go through some of these. The first one I want to talk about is your horizontal lines. Everything in this graphic is horizontal. Even though they're laid on top of one another, everything is horizontal. Horizontals and vertical lines give you structure. They say this is the foundation. This is a foundational class for some of our children. And so I needed it to be impressive. I needed it to understand that it had weight, but I also chose colors that didn't make it daunting. So the B'nai Mitzvah and being faded and overlapping one another was the little bit of play, the round edges in those fonts, but still in all, everything is horizontal, giving us structure. I was given the task of coming up with visuals for a concert that we sponsored with Paul Wilbur. He had just released his new CD called Roar from Zion, and this is the art that they sent me. And I really wasn't quite sure how I was going to make this work because there's so much importance in what's in this picture. So I started playing around with things, and I came up with adding horizontals and verticals. So when I put the vertical on the left side in the blue, suddenly that cropped in on the picture. So it gave it a better frame for me. I added the horizontal of the arrow, which gave it movement, but yet still stability. And then I added the vertical arrow and the vertical line going up, which to me represented that roar coming up from Zion, raising up. So I really liked it. And I especially liked adding the blue because it somehow made the black and white stronger. I'm not quite sure, but for me, that's what happened. So then I was wondering how it worked in our other formats, and I liked it even better. So this is one of those that just worked. It worked on all different platforms. The colors were good, and it did not deter and take away from what we had been given to work with. Another example of vertical lines, this simple one, just the lines going up. You're not quite sure whether the letters are coming down or whether they're going up. But then you have that strong light source that gives the shadows. Now, in this image that we've talked about before, you not only have your horizontals and verticals in this shot, but now you have diagonals. And the staircases create diagonals. And diagonals are tension, they cause unease. There is something that's changing that's not normal. It crosses across our structure. And so, in this, having this image, you are now being drawn up the stairs. You know that you are below that image that is up there that we created to look as though that was the presence of God, and you've got to go up to Him, and the tension that that causes just going up those stairs. Here's another example of how you can use diagonals. We had all of our image on one side, but we needed to get across text and explanation on the other. So I created the diagonal, but I did not go from the corner, if you notice. And yes, there's a play of black and white that's there also, but you definitely have two sides of the screen to look at that you're trying to pay attention to. Now, if you notice, this is a very normal, straight-lined diagonal. Notice the difference in feel when we don't make it so harsh and we make it almost in a torn paper fabrication. So if you look in the logo for the BHS Sisterhood, there is a diagonal line that naturally happens across the flowers. So I played off of that and made a diagonal line, but I made it a little bit easier to take because this is a nice, soft event, very welcoming. Again, when we talk about lines, the other set of lines that you need to be paying attention to are your waves or your circles, lines that are not perfectly straight. So here's this image again, and I told you how much I liked it. And when I noticed it, what I noticed is that now we're talking about wavy lines and circles and how they bring an ease, a relaxation to your image, completely the opposite of diagonals. And when I saw this, I wondered, was this a topographical map, or were these waves? But there was motion here, there was life, there was something going on. And so that's one way that you can use your curved or circular lines. Here's using circles, very festive. You know, when you think of things that are round, there's balls, there's balloons, there's coins, there's confetti. Generally, it's a very happy thing. Our sun and our moon, life-giving feeling that they have. But you don't want to overplay with circles. More circles on this would have started to look like it was polka dot, and then I would have been caught up in the pattern. You can either use circles this way, or I would suggest using a big circle that cuts into your image, that it gives you that edge. But use circles wisely. They're a great tool, especially to call attention. I love that we did it so that the circle, the gold circle, was inside the O. It just made it a little bit of fun there. So if you want to get more information about lines and their meanings and how they play in art, there is a website called Retro Avantgarde. I'm not quite sure that that is how it's pronounced, but .com. And they have a great article there called The Meaning of Lines in Art, Horizontals, Verticals, and Diagonals. They give great samples of each one. And so I would highly recommend going and reading that article. The last thing I want to talk to you about is elements. Elements are how we put this together. We've talked about the basic components, but now how do we do this? And it was funny when I was making the images just for these, I just had the word elements on there and I thought, well, that I'm not really showing it. So this is one way you can make elements just with your font. You know, all the E's and the L would all have been on one line. The S would have been on the same line. The T would have been dropped down a little bit in this font. But instead, I manipulated them. I turned them at an angle. And when I reversed the S and made it look as though there was almost an attachment to the T, we now had a period at the end of the S. So for the word, there was your period. So I want to encourage you to just think outside the box. Think, and I know everybody says that, but really don't look at things the way that you've always told that they have to be. Turn them on their side, put them at an angle, and see what happens. So the first thing I want to talk to you about when you're talking about elements is keep it simple. Keep your focus simple. This is simply to let them know that this ministry is meeting today. I don't have to put a lot into it. I've talked about how this piece of art has movement, it has feeling. And so it's a very simple but eye catching image. Again, here's another one about keeping it simple. I white and black with a little bit of red. There's that trap needs nothing else to it. It is there, it is menacing, it has foreshadowing on it, it's open, it's ready to get you. So why add anything else to it? Just let it be. The next thing I want to talk to you about is how you pull focus. Where should your focus go? So when I look at this image that we did for our usher ministry, and no, not the artist, my attention immediately goes to Usher's eye and to his finger, to that quadrant. Then it goes to where the text is in the opposite corner. And if you notice, directly in the center of our image is a dark shape. It's black because that's where his hand is that you can't see. The shadows are there. Usually you wouldn't think to put something black right in the middle of your image. But what you have to understand is our eyes are not drawn to the center of the image. So your image that you're trying to project shouldn't be put in the very middle. Instead, use the rule of threes. So if you take and you divide your image into 3 horizontals and 3 verticals equal, you will notice that Usher's eye and his finger fall in the thirds, almost on the lines. And so your eye naturally goes there to see what's there. When you have an image, move it around, get it off the center, move it up, move it down, move it left, move it right, and see how it changes how you see it. You'll probably see it better when it's not in the center. The next thing is how to make frames within frames within frames. You want what you're trying to focus on to have a frame around it without putting a frame around it. So by having this image of the children's hands and putting the text box off to the side, I've now created a frame and our image is a square. And yet when I did that, I was still distracted by all the arms coming in. So because those are in those thirds. So then I created another frame around it, which now made the fingers and the hands in the thirds. So by doing the frame within a frame, it draws your attention to where you want it to go. This one, again, this image, I just loved it when I found it. So we've talked about the horizontals and the verticals and the diagonals in this, but now when you look at it as in framing, you will notice that the arches each create their own frame, and you have frame upon frame upon frame in this image. And now you have the frame where we are trying to portray God's presence being. And yet, what I love about this is that God's presence can't be contained within that frame. So it works in a way that we hadn't even expected, because I could have put just a single person there. I could have put all sorts of things in it and they would have been perfectly framed in that arch. But to put this splash of light that now can't be contained within the frame even speaks louder about there trying to be a frame that can contain him. The next thing is overlapping. So when you overlap, please overlap. Don't have them touch. It's called kissing or tangents, and it's very distracting. So if you notice, the united in is overlapping the word Messiah. Now, some of it may look like it's sitting right on the top of it, but it's not. It's just below it. And the tails of the letters are playing with the other text. And then you have the image of the man praying, who's now overlaying the word Messiah. and yet Messiah is still clearly readable. So those three things needed to be in relationship. And so when you overlap, you cause relationship between your images, and your font. So what's interesting is you can put your hand over the bottom part where it gives us our day, date, and time and block that out, and everything else is still in relationship. So that information could come or go, and you did not lose the feeling of your image. The other last thing that I really want you to consider is think about all the different formats, programs, all the different ways you're going to use your image. And is there room in the image to be turned, made adjusted, sized, so that it works on all your different platforms? We did this Come As You Are as a prayer guide. We did it on our website. We had it on social media. And then we were all prepared for that. And we realized that our season of repentance actually began with a Rosh Chodesh worship service that was happening. And so we really couldn't use this daylight, this bright image for a night worship service. And for us, it starts when the sun sets, we see 3 stars. So I had the idea of taking this image and putting a pink hue over it as though it was dusk and adding the 3 stars. So it is a little bit darker overall, but most of that is because of the coloring that's happened. Your greens are still pretty close. They're not quite as vibrant, but you don't lose anything from one image to the other. And I'll go back. You still has come as you are. You still have the same road. But what you know is this is evening. This is evening, and it's a different feel. It's much more quiet and thought provoking, where the other one is you could hop or skip or walk or jump. It has more energy to it. So sometimes just changing your color of your image or the background can change everything. So there's a great video done by Tyler Edlin, and it's called My Top 10 Composition Tips for Artists. Now, he is an artist. I believe he draws, but his composition hints are for any artist for any medium. That also includes for visual. You can still take his lessons and just use it in this medium by how you place text and things like that. So great video, great explanations, and he even has more references for you to go to. Finally, I just want to tell you, here are the things I want you to try. Breathe. Just breathe. It's okay. I know it can be daunting when you sit there and you're wondering how you're ever going to make this project that somebody's asked you to do or that you even want to do for yourself. But just relax and breathe. And then I just want your mind to wander. I want you to think about the first thing that comes to your mind and go to a site like Shutterstock or Deposit Photos and just put in key words that you think would apply to what the feeling you're trying to get across, and just start going through. And usually it'll lead you down a path that'll lead you down another path, and you really will wander, and you'll eventually get to where you want to go. And along the way, you find images that maybe aren't right for the project you're working on, but save them because you know they're impactful and you know that you'll use them. And it cuts down your time. I can't tell you how many times there's been an image that I've saved as a favorite just to go back to because I know that I'm going to need it. So let your mind wander. Pick something, even if you don't think it's the perfect image and it's exactly right, go ahead. Download a trial of it, put it on your white screen. If you can't find an image and there's a color that you want or that feels right for the image, fill your screen with that color. Just get a basic start. I think we feel like we have to have all of it all together at once to make it, but we don't. It's a small step. And then I want you to create. And then I want you to recreate. I can't tell you how many times I think, oh, this is it, I got it. And I get it all there and I'm like, it's not right. And then I'll sit there and look at it. I'm like, oh, but what if the image in the background was this? It's okay. I don't want you to be frustrated. We probably work in one of the best mediums there are, because if I'm an artist, I can't necessarily paint over my canvas or just take out my background. I have to start all over. Photography, you think of all, drawing, all those. I had a thought, what if I was weaving this beautiful rug and I was three-quarters of the way through and realized that the pattern that I first started with is not the pattern I want? And I have to take it all apart just to make that change. We live in a place where in this medium we can save it and we can make a copy and we can go in and change the background or change a color and see if it's right or not. This is so forgiving, and yet I think sometimes because it is so forgiving and we have so many options, it gets a little overwhelming. So start with small steps. Remember, breathe, wander, create, recreate. But most importantly, I want you to enjoy the process. I want you to get excited about a color, about an image, about something that makes you laugh, about an inside joke in an image, something that's humorous, like the Usher ministry video. When that came up on the screen, everybody cracked up laughing because it's not what they expected. And yet, for a ministry that most people think that older people take care of, we now had younger people laughing and thinking about the usher ministry because of that image. And that's what you're supposed to do, not just your enjoyment, but other people's enjoyment. So I hope this has helped you. I hope it's helped you understand um, a way to go about it. I'm not saying it's the best way, it's my way. But it's helped me a lot to sit back and work through these processes and know that this is how I come to each project. I spend a lot of time thinking and just observing and getting inspiration before I ever put anything on a piece of paper. And I may put down 4 or 5 different thoughts and create images and work out which direction we're going, and then take that one and take it a step further or even make changes to it. So I hope this helps. Love to hear your feedback. And I hope you enjoyed this art demo. Remember, you can defeat the white screen. It's not a scary place. It's really quite fun. It's like a giant, I don't know, like a giant sandbox you get to have fun in and draw and play. So it was good to share this time with you. I hope you've been blessed. Please stay safe. Bye.